Hi, I'm Susan Rutledge, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make a gradient basket weave and turn it into a seamless pattern swatch in Adobe Illustrator. Now, if you've not ever used seamless pattern swatches before, let me show you how easy they are to use. I'm going to select my star and come over to the Properties panel and click on the Fill Color icon and click on my swatch, and instantly I have a seamless pattern, and you can't see where it begins or where it ends, and that's why we call it seamless. Now, there's some very specifics to creating a seamless pattern swatch, but I'm going to show you how simple this one is to make. If you want to learn how to make more complex ones, I'll leave a link to a tutorial at the end of this video that'll show you how to do that. Right now, let's move into a new document and get started. I've already selected the colors I'm going to use, and I've placed them on the artboard so that I have easy access to them, and I recommend that you do the same thing. I have two light colors and then two darker colors that kind of go with them to use as the darker shading. I'm going to start off creating a rectangle. I'll get the rectangle tool, keyboard shortcut M, and click on the artboard to open the rectangle dialog box. I'll type in 4.5 inches for the width, tab down and type in 1/2 inch for the height, and then press the return key. Now I'm going to get the eyedropper tool, keyboard shortcut I, and this first rectangle is going to be light green. Now I'm going to duplicate this rectangle. I'm going to place it 1/4 inch below the original one. So I'll come up to Object, Transform, and Move. Now I don't want a horizontal move, so I'll type in 0 for horizontal, but the vertical value needs to be the height of the rectangle plus 1/4 inch. So I'm going to type in 0.75, and then instead of saying OK, I'm going to press Copy. This gives me an exact duplicate, and it's placed 1/4 inch below the original rectangle. Now while the copy is selected, I'm going to duplicate that move 3 more times. I'll use the keyboard shortcut Command D and Command D and Command D. Then I'll get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and I'll select my rectangles, move them over to the left, and then I'll hold down the Option key and drag another set onto the artboard. Now this second set is going to be a different color, so I'll get the eyedropper tool, keyboard shortcut I, and we'll make this the lighter orange. Now while the orange rectangles are selected, I'm going to group them together, keyboard shortcut Command G, and then I'll get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, select the green rectangles and group them as well, keyboard shortcut Command G. Now I need to rotate the orange rectangles, so I'll select them and get the rotate tool, keyboard shortcut R, and I'll hold down the shift key because as I rotate, the rotation snaps in 45-degree increments, and when I have 90 degrees, I'll just release my mouse. Now I'll get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and I'll lasso over all of the rectangles, and I'll come to the Properties panel and I'm going to click on Horizontal Align Left and Vertical Align Top. So now both sets of rectangles are aligned on the top left anchor. Now I'm going to turn the bounding box on for just a minute, Shift Command B, and I can then hold down the Shift key and drag out a larger copy for us to work on. And while they're selected, I'm going to get rid of some pieces. I'll get the Shape Builder tool, keyboard shortcut Shift M, and to remove pieces, I hold down the Option key as I drag across them. And I'll get rid of the 5th vertical rectangle and the 5th horizontal rectangle, and then I'm also going to get rid of the extra pieces that are no longer attached. Then I'll go back and get the selection tool again, keyboard shortcut V, and I need to click on the artboard so that I don't have everything selected. Then just select the orange rectangles and ungroup them, keyboard shortcut Shift Command G, and ungroup the green rectangles, Shift Command G. Now we're ready to begin the process of creating our basket weave. I'll get the Shape Builder tool, keyboard shortcut Shift M, and I have the green color active, which is what I'm going to use. With the Shape Builder tool, I'm able to join any pieces together here that I want to. All I have to do is hold my mouse down and drag across them. I'll skip the top left corner, and then I'll join these pieces together and skip an orange and go over the top. Now for the next row, I'm going to go over. So it's over, under, over, and I'm under. Now for the third row, I copy the first one. So it's easier for me to just do that quickly. And then the fourth row is a copy of the second row. So we'll drag over here, drag here, and we're finished. I'll get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and deselect this on the artboard. And now we could actually use this as a swatch, except for I'm going to add some gradient and make it just a little fancier. I'll start off by selecting the top green segment, and then I'll get the gradient tool, keyboard shortcut G, and press the return key. And this opens up the gradient dialog box. If you haven't used gradients before, it's not really hard and you'll catch on quickly. This is the gradient slider, and I'm going to double click just underneath the left side here. And that opens up the color picker for me. I'm going to get the color picker, and I want this to be the dark green color. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the far right side, double click it, get the color picker, and add this dark green. Now we're going to add another color ball here in the very center. So I'll double click down here, get the color picker. This is going to be the light green. Now make sure that you use the light for the center and the dark on the two edges. Now close out the gradient tool and get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and I'll select the other green pieces that are the same size. Now I'm going to turn the bounding box off, Shift Command B, and hold the Shift key back down to select just the big green rectangles. I'm leaving the two small pieces alone. Now I want to copy this gradient, so I'll get the eyedropper tool, keyboard shortcut I, and just click here on our gradient, and this applies the gradient to all the rest of these pieces. Now I'll get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and I'll select these two little pieces and get the eyedropper tool, keyboard shortcut I, and I'm going to change those to the dark green. Now I'll get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V. We are halfway finished. I'm going to grab hold of everything and I'm going to rotate it. I'll get the rotate tool, keyboard shortcut R. Now remember, I hold down the Shift key until it snaps at 90 degrees, and then I'll get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and deselect everything. Now the reason that I'm doing that is because I don't want to have to change the direction of the gradient. I'll start with the top left orange and activate the gradient tool, keyboard shortcut G, and press the return key. And I'll come down and double click on the bottom left corner, get the color picker. We want this to be the dark orange. Double click on the far right, get the color picker, dark orange, double click, color picker, light orange, then close out the gradient. Get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and I'll hold down the Shift key and select the large orange pieces. Get the eyedropper tool, keyboard shortcut I, and click on our gradient, and then get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and select the two little orange pieces. Get the eyedropper tool and change that to the dark orange. I'll get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and select everything together, and I'm going to group it, keyboard shortcut Command G. Now I'm going to turn the bounding box back on, keyboard shortcut Shift Command B, and that way I can resize this easily. And I'm going to hold down the Shift key so that I scale it proportionally, and we're going to make this quite a bit smaller. And then I need to open up the Swatches panel, so I'll go to Window, down to Swatches, click here, and we're going to add our design to the Swatches panel. So I'll just click on it and drag it in, and now we have our swatch created right here. I can actually dock this next to these other tabs. Now I'll come over to the Properties panel and press down on the rectangle to open up these other live shapes and choose the Star tool, and I'll drag out a star and then get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V. I think I made that a little too big. Here we go. Now I'll come over and choose our seamless pattern swatch, and it is perfect. If you want to add a stroke around it, then you just simply come over and you can add that as well. And here we have our design. Now if you want the design to be smaller, let me show you how to do that. Let's get the rectangle tool, keyboard shortcut M, and I'll just drag this out, and I'm going to come up to Object, Transform, Scale. And right now the scale is set at 50% and the entire object scaled to 50%, which is not what I wanted. The reason it did that is because Transform Objects is checked. If I uncheck that, then immediately the object goes back to the right size, but I have a 50% scaling on the pattern, which is what I wanted. So I'll say OK. And that is how you create a seamless pattern swatch in Adobe Illustrator. Well, I do hope that you've enjoyed this video and that you've learned something about creating seamless pattern swatches. Be sure and subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell so that you don't miss any of my future tutorials, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye now.